welcome to episode 27 of Training Thought and Truth. Okay, so Yajat Gupta, is that right?
Yeah.
It's great. Thanks very much for reaching out and coming on to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. You can hear me clear enough anyway, can you?
Yeah.
That's great. And Yajat, this is episode 27 of my podcast called Training Thought and Truth. And basically it's about mental health, physical health and spiritual health. And I have different guests on, they talk about different aspects of, whatever their niche is really, so really what I wanted to talk about, maybe we can, whereabouts are you calling from actually this morning?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, actually, you know what, I'm going to plug in my earphones just because the mic on it is a bit better. 1 second.
Okay.
Can you hear me there?
Yeah.
Just checking, whereabouts are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pennsylvania in the United States.
Oh, very good. I think I messed up the times a little bit. I've done that a few times with the Greenwich Mean Time and the Eastern Time.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am currently in high school, and I really love listening to music and playing music on instruments such as the piano, the violin, and the clarinet. I really like to play basketball, and I go down to the local YMCA. It's like a building where they have a swimming pool, a basketball court, and I hang out there a lot with my friends. I'm currently working on a project called the Soar Initiative, where I try to increase reading rates across the world through a podcast, which offers book trailers.
Okay, great. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about Soar Initiative, how you got it going, or why you even got it going.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I really wanted to make sure that other people also got into the habit of reading, especially, it wasn't meant for quarantine, but quarantine is a perfect opportunity, especially now since everyone's free and has so much downtime, that it's really important that we be productive and make good use of our time. So that's why I thought that if we can encourage reading, then people can do that. So my initial thought was actually, for this initiative, my initial thought was that people who unfortunately can't see, who are visually impaired, they don't get the opportunity to experience like audiobooks or braille books as much, maybe because they weren't exposed to it. So I thought that by introducing these audio book trailers, that even people who are visually impaired can listen to them, gain an interest in reading, and either listen to audiobooks or read braille books. But then I realized that it has a lot more to offer than for just the visually impaired community, so I decided to expand it out to just trying to increase reading rates across the entire world.
Yeah, it's a good idea because it's true that, for people who are blind, you can walk into a bookshop and you can look at the back of a book, or you can look up a review of it online very quickly and get a feel for what it's about. I haven't come across this before, where I've listened to a few of your podcasts today where you're doing some trailers on the books, and they're very good. It's a great idea, that they can get the feel for, before you have to go ahead and purchase something like an audiobook, you can get a little snippet of it. So I'm surprised no one's done it before. It's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
And you only kicked that off this year?
Yeah, it's been about a month and a half so far.
Okay, and you're someone who you're a big reader yourself, are you?
Yeah, I got an interest in reading mainly because my mom read to me a lot when I was younger.
Yeah, and you still read? Would you go through much in a week?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Would you go through many books in a week?
Yeah.
Would you? Yeah?
Definitely.
What are you reading at the moment?
Right now I'm reading a book called The Iron Trial. I'm actually rereading it because it's one of my favorite books. It's really good.
The Iron Trial.
I was planning to make a trailer on it after I finish rereading it.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, you make the trailers after you've read the books, have you?
Yeah,
Tell me this as well. Like I know, like we're talking a bit about audiobooks. It's a relatively new kind of phenomenon, isn't it? Like it's only the last few years that have really picked up speed with a few of the apps, Audible and things like that. And I think it
yeah,
was
that's true.
initially designed for blind people.
Yeah, but
But
it's also a useful way for people who are busy and doing other things to multitask, you know?
no, it absolutely is. Like I'm not a great reader, but I've gone through a few books in the last year or two,
Hmm.
while commuting through audiobooks because I can't find the spare time. But I have a
Yeah,
3 hour commute every day, and it's great. I get through a lot of books, um,
yeah,
and it is a great way. And I was looking up some neuroscience on reading and audiobooks earlier, and they say that neurological studies say that reading and listening to a book has the same
mhm,
benefits and reactions on the brain.
yeah. So that reminds me, brain, like, about mental health and things like that. So I was just wondering, what gave you the idea to start this Training Thought and Truth podcast?
Well, I guess really I was someone who was. I always thought to myself that the mental and the physical health, once I had them in check, going through life, I was okay. And I knew that one helped the other. I knew like the more you exercise, it released the endorphins that helped your mood. And I guess I was always a bit into when I was leaving school. I probably wanted to go down the route of counselling, and I know I had a few family members who were kind of down that route, and I wanted
Yeah,
to help others out. Of I would have felt as though I would have had bouts of depression, like everyone does, and some
yeah,
people have it more severe than others. And I found that exercising helped that, like create an anchor for me, kind of. And really, it was only May last year, really last a couple of years ago, the spiritual side of it came really strong because I was still a bit down on myself, and I found great finding Christianity kind of in reading the New Testament, the words of it.
hmm,
It gave me great appreciation and kind of just for life in general. And I really found that if I got people on one of these three topics, or we went through it, experts or people who are good in certain fields, then maybe other people can see the benefits of it as well and might relate to different guests, you know. So that's really why I'm doing the podcast. And like you're from like your Soar Initiative, it's really like the mental strength of it. Like, you can see how
yeah.
good reading is, and they even say reading reduces stress by 68%. Like that alone is
Wow.
is great, like for your own.
Yeah, I feel as though reading can be really relaxing, and I agree with you when you say that exercising is really important. It's not only just good for your body, but it also makes you feel good about yourself. So I like
Yeah,
what you're doing there.
yeah. Thanks a lot. Do you think that how's your reach going so far with this? I know you're not long after kicking off this project, but
Uh, I would have appreciated more downloads, and because I feel as though this initiative will only help if it is able to reach more people as a way to get them to start reading. But so far, there's people from many different countries, but not many people from each of those individual countries. It's like
yeah,
2 to 3 people from like multiple countries right now. It's about to reach 500 downloads.
that's still quite good. That's quite good in the space of time you've had it. It is tough though to advertise online, isn't it? Like you can advertise
Yeah.
online, but it's hard to get the reach or find the niche market for it. Or I find it difficult even with the podcast. You obviously use a hosting site that gives you the downloads and what country they're in, like Podbean or something like that. Do you?
Hmm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I use Buzzsprout.
yeah, yeah. It is good to see though. I know it's only one or two parts of the map that might light up, but at least it's gathering momentum in a small way.
Yeah.
And tell me, you're like on the mental side of things, then you obviously do your basketball and your swimming. Is that what you said as well?
Oh yeah.
You've been doing that for a long time,
Hmm.
and you've had a bit of a weight transformation yourself, have you?
Weight transformation.
What kind of weight loss?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
So that was basically through the have you heard of the keto diet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, my mother, she was enduring a lot of pain because of her arthritis. So she was trying to figure out different ways to quickly lose weight because losing weight made her pain feel better.
Hmm.
So when she went on the keto diet and it helped her, we thought that perhaps that it could help me also. I needed to get into good shape for basketball season and I wanted to be good to go. So we did the keto diet. In about like 2 months, I lost, I think, about 20 pounds with also lots of exercise and strict guidelines for the
Yeah.
diet.
It's a tough diet to follow for some people, is it?
Yeah, it's tough because you start craving foods, and if you can't handle the crave at the beginning, then it doesn't work out. But once you get past that beginning point, then it's okay because then from there the crave just stops. Then it's okay. Then
Yeah.
it's
And
doable.
it's a lot of kind of replacing kind of bad fats for good fats and things like that, is it?
Yeah, and it's also really tough because if you're not a meat eater, then your food options are very, very limited. So for people who don't eat meat, it can be really difficult because then basically all you can eat are eggs and veggies.
Oh. And are you a meat eater?
I just eat chicken. That's the only meat I eat.
Yeah. I know a lot of, can I ask you why?
Uh, well, I don't really like the taste of seafood and other meat. I've never tried beef because I'm Hindu and it's against
Ah,
for religious reasons. But
yeah.
all for all other meat, it's mainly because I just don't like the taste.
Okay. Okay. No, that makes sense because I know I've been trying to. I'm actually in the middle of a fast myself at the moment, trying to keep my body in
Oh,
ketosis fast. I'm 25 hours in, but I will be breaking it after this podcast because a bit of food have arrived. but
nice.
no, it is. I think we're learning an awful lot about the body in the last few years, aren't we? Like the fasting and the ketosis and just
Yeah.
what diets, what foods are. I guess it's just the science that's going into it, the research that's being done on a daily basis. Now we're getting to know what we optimally need for our bodies. And do you
Yeah.
maintain a good diet now with your exercise plan?
Yeah, and it's true that there's a lot of new research being done and new things. Also, combinations such as have you heard of like intermittent fasting along with keto?
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
intermittent
that.
fast every day, but I was advised lately to once a month try uh, a full day fasted, at least 1 to 3 days. So I've done over a day now. But
Oh wow, that can be tough.
I find great benefits with the intermittent fasting. Like I do 18 hours or else 16 hours, but I don't find it too bad. A lot of people are like look at me twice when I say that, but like if you eat a meal at
Yeah.
7 evening and then you you hit your I have a little app, I think it's called Zero Fasting app, and by the time I
Hmm.
wake up in the morning, it's like 14 hours done, like, and it's pretty easy, like, and
Yeah.
not as hard as people think. And, you sleep half of it if you do it right.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you tried the fasting yourself?
I've tried fasting, but not very strict fasting. Like I don't know what type of fasting you're talking about when you refer, but I've done the type of fasting where basically you're still allowed water and one meal in the day.
Okay, yeah. Mine is kind of like you eat within a certain window. It's like
Okay.
18 hours fasted, and then you get 6 hours for eating. So like you can have water and like black coffee while you're fasted, but
Hmm.
then once you're in the eating window, you can eat your normal 3 meals a day and then go back onto it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm glad that you can have coffee. I really like coffee.
yeah, yeah. It was a bit of a. I always had it with milk, and
Yeah.
it was a bit like sometimes it's a bit. Initially, it was kind of like, oh, I much prefer this with milk, but you get used
Hmm.
to it, and now it's grand. Like, you get up and it actually is supposed to boost the benefits of a fast, the coffee, whatever is in it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's actually good like that. But and you stay on top of your weight these days by just doing your exercise and keeping fit.
Yeah.
Tell me as well. You were saying that you are a chess master. Is that right?
I'm not exactly a chess master, but I have earned a fourth category title in chess.
Okay, so tell me what way that works. I'm not too sure what the categories mean.
Yeah, so basically, you start off around, so you get a membership with whatever service your country provides. Like, for example, if you're in if you're in the US, then it's the USCF ID. But if you're in other countries, then it can be other sorts of chess memberships. Then once you get that, then you can go to tournaments where you can find information about when the next upcoming tournaments are going to be on that website, and you can go. And so when you play a chess game against someone else, everyone has their own allotted rating, or it's basically sort of a gauge to like show how far your skill has grown.
Hmm.
So if the higher the difference between you and your opponent's rating, the more you gain or lose, and the higher the rating is, the better it is.
Yeah.
So basically, how you achieve certain category titles is by achieving a certain rating. So for example, say in your first tournament, you're a new player and you don't have a rating yet, and you go up against people that are around 800 and you get 3 out of 4, then your starting rating will probably be around like 700, 750 something. And then as you beat people closer to your rating, you'll gain maybe like 6 or 7 points per win, 3 points per draw, and like minus 4 or 5 points per loss. But then as the difference is higher, it's more and more. So like if you are 700 and you lose to someone who's a 1000, then you'll only lose like 2 or 3 points instead of 7 or 8. And so the category title that I got, how it works is that you have to have a rating of at least 1,600, and there's something called a performance rating, which is basically not your rating, but it's how you played. So for example, if you're 1,200 but you beat a 2,000, it's not like you're actually 2,000, but you played at that level. So that's how the performance rating is calculated, basically what level you played at. So how you earn the fourth category title is if your rating is at least 1,600, and if you achieve a 1,800 performance rating at least 3 times.
Okay, and this online tournaments, or is it in?
There are both online and in-person tournaments, but the tournaments that have like cash prizes and the big tournaments that affect your national ranking, those are only in person,
Yeah.
not online.
Have you won any tournaments?
Yeah, I've won quite a few tournaments. I've been playing for about 4 or 5 years, and I think I've won about $2,000 in total.
Oh, that's quite good. It's one of the things that say that playing chess and reading actually they both have in common is that they make your
Yeah,
mind more analytical and they
yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. That they help with your critical thinking.
yeah. So you have definitely a big boost there for
Yeah.
both of them going. Tell me, you mentioned something briefly in a message that you had, like what you would call a near-death experience. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. So that was very frightening. I still remember certain scenes from it, and I'm not sure how in danger we actually were, but it was a very scary experience. So we were going down to visit my parents, my grandparents, who were living and we were seeing their old village where they lived in India. So
Yeah.
we went to visit, and then as we were leaving to come back home, we saw that the roads were very jammed, and we didn't really know why, but we just saw that they were jammed. And we decided that we can't just sleep in the car, and since it's like a village, there are no hotels nearby, and we didn't know what we could do. But then our driver told us that he knew a shortcut through the forest, so we decided to take that shortcut. But as we went through that shortcut, we got an update on our phones that said that the reason that all the traffic and everything was jammed and why people were coming back and everything is because there was a jailbreak nearby. And have you ever heard of Naxalites?
No.
So they're anti-government terrorists, and
Okay.
they were the people who had broken out of the prison, and they had just killed 5 police officers, and apparently they had escaped into the same small jungle that we were in. Like the odds of us not running into them were kind of low because it was a pretty small jungle just out of the way from the village. But somehow we didn't run into them. But it was a very scary experience. At one point, a car was following us, but it turned out that it was just an elderly couple. But we got really scared when we saw that happening, and our driver came out and helped them and gave them directions. A lot of times the driver had to come out to stop the car so that he could move some branches or decide where we should go next. And it was a very frightening experience. We were hearing all sorts of noises coming. We weren't sure whether we were going to make it out. And when we did, we we thought that there must have been some sort of that driver must have been some sort of like really like kind person almost, that it was sort of like destiny that he was the one who was able to save us through that experience, because we weren't sure that we would have survived through that.
Yeah, wow, that does sound very frightening enough. And tell me,
Yeah.
do you go back to India much?
We do, but we haven't gone to such areas such as that, like small villages where we've only mainly visited our family in the normal big cities.
Yeah, yeah. And tell me, you mentioned as well that one part of this is training thought, and truth is this kind of spiritual side, and different people have different truths. So what motivates them or their own cultures and religions. Can you actually tell me a bit about Hinduism? Because I don't know that much about it. I there wouldn't be a very large community really in Ireland in
Oh, yeah.
count wise. So even as compared to something like Catholicism or Christianity, where what your beliefs are, where it's different.
Yeah, so Hinduism basically focuses on the idea of moksha, or salvation, where the idea is that if you earn your way through the current life that you're in, then
Mhm.
either you'll be in a better position in the next life, or you'll earn far enough so that you can become part of God once again. So the idea is that everyone is a part of God, and that when they come into this world, a small part of God breaks off, and that's the part that you are. So then when you achieve salvation, you become that part of God again. So basically, it's the idea that God is in everyone, in everything, and that there are many, many gods for all sorts of different kind of things in Hinduism. One of the There are many gods like worship, such as cows. That's why you can see cows walking in the streets in India, and if you hit them, it's almost like a felony. Like people get really, really angry if
Hmm.
things like that happen. That's another reason why they don't kill cows and why they don't eat beef
Okay.
and such.
No way, I know what you mean. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of gods, isn't there? There's is there like 100 or something like that? I'm not even sure.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot more than that,
No.
because there's gods for almost every single thing that you can think of.
Yeah, because I know it's actually, I think, the oldest religion in the world. I think
Oh yeah,
they date it back.
because all the other religions have some sort of idea for how they can how they were formed, but all that's known about Hinduism is that it was formed from people in the Indus River Valley, which existed a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah, and
So I actually just looked it up. Apparently, there's 330 million gods in Hinduism.
wow. So I was way off.
Yeah.
It just shows my ignorance there. I tell you, but it's right up. A lot of it seems like when you're talking about we're all part of God and we kind of come down, and it's all about being your best self here and
Mhm.
being good, so you earn the eternal life and back with God. It's very along the lines of what a lot of people believe in different religions as well, isn't it? Like that part is what I would believe to
Yeah,
a lot
like
of
also
sense.
the salvation part from Buddhism.
Yeah,
That's something that's really similar.
yeah, and it's also a Christian thing as well. That
Yeah.
salvation as well comes through Christ and stuff like that. Um, what's really interesting, like just getting to know the different things, and like what is a practicing? Would you what do you call a practicing Hindu? Like is there certain um things you do every day, like people in the Islamic the religions would do?
Yeah, not like every day as such, but there are many like festivals where we would light where we light candles. We offer some sweets. We put it in front of like an idol, and then we say some prayers. That happens once in a while. Have you heard of Diwali?
No.
So it's the Festival of Lights. It's a pretty popular Hindi holiday, and it's so popular that even here, like where we are in the U.S. in Pennsylvania, our schools we don't have a day off, but it's recognized as a holiday here. And
Okay.
it's basically you light up your entire house to symbolize. Basically, it's from the story of how a god was returning, and to make sure that they knew where he had to go, they lit up the entire village. So that's basically the idea, that we're just lighting up, and it's showing like our, happiness and everything like that.
And what is the idea of the many gods? What, like, are they? Is it like the same idea that we have? Say, like I'd say there's one God. Is it that we believe that in the next life there is all these gods, or there still is the one creator?
Yeah, so basically the idea behind it is that there's the three supreme gods, and then there's that one like essence from the god. Like it's like there's one God, but then just how the idea is that we have broken off from God and become these people who live on this earth, that there were multiple gods who broke off from those beginning gods and broke off and became people who, ruled over and were gods for different things.
Okay, yeah, and it's almost like the Trinity is in Christianity, with the three gods as well. Um,
Yeah, I actually had a question about that. I've been kind of confused about this for a while, and no one's really explained it to me in a way that I've understood. But based on
but
what I know,
yeah,
Christianity is a monotheistic religion, right?
yeah.
But doesn't it consider Jesus Christ, his Father, and the Holy Spirit three gods?
Well, it's like it's a really like there's the way I'd answer it is that there's like there is Ireland is a Catholic kind of country, and
Mhm.
Catholicism is but basically Christianity, but it has different not different viewpoints, but there are some things that I found myself in it that were different from the actual scripture, and that's like it took me a long time to I kind of broke away from the kind of past religious, you know,
Yeah.
um, sometimes when you grow up, you're in the school system that is
Mhm.
Catholicized, that's Ireland. And then as you grow up, you get older, you kind of forget about it in your teens and then your early 20s. And it actually came to me in kind of an enlightenment experience where, I
Mhm.
felt a presence of a certain being, and really the way I said to myself is that I have to go from the start with this because if this is true, then I have to know if it scientifically could be true. So I kind of got
Yeah.
books and I went even to Israel and I looked up a lot of the scholarships and historians and biblical things and things like that. So I wanted to know what was right from the source, from people who weren't
Yeah.
Christians or just
I
historians.
agree that, yeah, that's something that I think about too, whether all of this is true and how to scientifically think of it, how to scientifically think of how life could have been started with the involvement of a supreme being. But it's hard for me to mix the faith part and the sciencely and analytical thinking part
Yeah,
of the way to think about it. It's yeah.
and with the Trinity, like I did find though great. I did find like what I was finding was boosting my faith, and it was building that kind of cornerstone or the cement foundations for what I had witnessed and what I was now believing. And
Yeah.
the Trinity, the way I would see that is like there is a God, and I think it's the same as what a lot of people believe in religion. And he will the stepping stone to that is Jesus. He's like the representation of the stepping stone between getting to God. He says that
Oh, okay. That
he's
makes
so
sense.
yeah. So like it's almost making it relatable. It's like God saying like I'm also part of ye, and I suffer like ye do. And if you believe me and trust me, then you'll get salvation in the name of Jesus. This is the human form of God, that came down to kind of relate to us because we were going astray, and that's how I kind of. And the,
Yeah.
the third is the Holy Spirit, and Jesus talks about that when you believe, then you get this. It's like a sense, that you're doing the right things, and it kind of helps you along. So that's the three. I think that they're all from the one being, but
So
they're
yeah,
all
is that like similar to the idea of Hinduism where the gods broke off from that one god, so like they're
yeah.
all one being but showing themselves in different forms?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think that like that's the kind of
Yeah.
human aspect of God, and then the other is the kind of feeling of the morality, or just the good spirit of love is what the Holy Spirit is. So that's just helping everybody out, which is like a universal thing, so then there is the Creator, which is the supreme being, the God, and
Yeah.
that's so it is kind of it's not wildly different either, I think. And I think that, even when I listen to Muslims, they think along the same lines with a lot of these things. So I think that everyone is kind of, just based on maybe different cultures, like you say, or, stories that
Yeah.
are passed down between different countries, there are deviations. But I think we're all kind of along the same lines that there's a higher being and we are created, for more of a purpose. And, I really delved into this kind of stuff where like, how could could we be sludge on a rock from billions of years ago? And if that's true, then how is this true? And I had to really sort it all out in my mind, the
Yeah. So,
evolution side of things, or everything like that. But luckily
yeah.
enough,
So
there's a lot of research on it, and it's fascinating stuff, I think.
yeah. What do you think about that theory? What if it? What do you think about the idea that what if God is real? Maybe there is a supreme being, but maybe there's also not. Maybe uh, just a yeah, like you said, a big meteor crashed, some bacteria formed, and
Yeah.
they had to adapt to stimulus in their environments, and then they evolved, and they kept evolving for billions of years until we were made into the way we are today. What if that's
Yeah.
the case?
So like what I'm trying to do is I try to keep up with the most up to date scientific. I love the scientific community and how much it's putting out for the benefit of humankind, and their findings are amazing. On this topic, though, I really have to see, like, before I had, basically what I had was I kind of called out, in kind of a depression state to Jesus, and it was like a light enveloped the room, kind of. And
Wow.
what really happened after that was I was on the evolution standpoint fairly hard, and I was like, well, like, if that happened, how could evolution be true? How could all this be true? Because the stuff I don't believe in, that God says we're all created. And then I dug into it an awful lot, and I tried to find, they call it one big massive thing, the missing link. It's the lost. They can't find any. From monkeys to man, they can't find one skeletal, changeover. And they said maybe it happened very fast, and I was like, well, that's interesting. And then I dug more into it, and I was kind of like, then I dug into the neuroscience side of things, and it's kind of like, the conscious mind and how we still don't understand it and how unbelievable it is. And then small things like, even without digging into research and history, I was kind of seeing, small things. I think Jordan Peterson also helped an awful lot in this. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was kind of putting together kind of the bigger concept and meaning of our lives. And, I found I was bumping into people at certain times that was like perfect timing. And, when I
Yeah.
prayed, it felt as though I was heard, and things, would almost be answered. And I felt as though I had a purpose. Even people talking, if we're just sludge and bacteria on a rock from billions of years ago that formed by chance, it seems so crazy how, like when I speak, someone takes it in, they manifest that based on their ideas and cultures, they come back out. But even to manifest a thought and speak it, it's so hard to even get the scientific information that writes that.
Yeah.
So much info in one pin drop of DNA, they say. It would stack books around the world. And it's kind of just looking at, like you said, like that God is a part of all of us, that, there is a spark of divinity within all of us. And I do believe that. I have a son, and I look at him and I think, is my love for him a chemical reaction? Like, I don't think so. Like, is he just a sludge of bacteria? No, I do believe there's a higher purpose for all of us, and helping each other out. And like this talk here, these things, that reach people and might take someone out of their depressive state, or might relate to people in their way.
Yeah.
I just do think that the evolution side of things, like, I do believe in microevolution, and there's macroevolution as well, I find. So I definitely do think that animals and even we evolve on scales, absolutely, and our genetics and our DNA, like that, you can't argue with that. It's good, but I don't think that we, I do believe that, when they trace down our original ancestors through the mitochondrial DNA, I do believe we all, they do say we all came from one woman, and I do believe that we are created in God's image.
Yeah.
But what
But
do you
what's
think?
your? I mean, I'm unsure. I feel as though I believe in both
Mm-hmm.
ways a little bit, but I have no sort of middle ground. I'm not sure about my stance on in this. I think that either there is a higher power, or and maybe he has created all of this with his image for what he wants this world to be, what he wants this world to look like, or that the idea that this was all just by chance. Because the biggest question is that if this is all true, then what about the concept of death, of
Yeah.
salvation? Is this all true, or is it just that it's just organ failure and you don't ever have any of your senses again. Like what goes on, what happens.
Yeah, well,
Sort of like that idea.
I'm doing a talk with a neuroscientist, quite a famous one, Eben Alexander, Dr. Eben Alexander, next week.
Nice.
And he was on Oprah, and he was on Larry King. He was on these things, and he was a neurosurgeon atheist who did actually had a clinical death for 45 minutes, and he said that he went to the afterlife, and then this spawned him researching every world and every culture's near-death experiences, which I think are like one in 25. I know, sorry, like
Oh,
one in. It's some. I'll look it up. It's some mad number. Like the amount of near-death experiences that are happening it's really high, and like it's so high that the scientific community have to like are really like stumbling to gather the research on it. But this guy went around. He gathered all the data from different worlds, different religions, different cultures, and he's piecing together kind of the map, he says, of heaven, and
mm,
how like it's not, he said, it's not a religious, it's not a specific religious thing, but it is an all loving God or an all loving creator. But yeah, I think like even that, like the amount of near death experiences, I'm very fascinated by all that kind of thing, because you have to take like it's scientific, you know, um, research, so, and it's definitely to be taken into account. I think some people who are atheists don't even bother thinking about these things and just bury their head in the sand. But and they think that, people who believe are idiots in certain ways. But I think you're a bigger idiot to bury your head and not think about these things, that this is the higher, like, what else are you here for? What's the purpose of life if you're just going through the motions? There's evidence and there's stuff that backs up the evidence there. And I
yeah,
think,
that's true. But one opinion of atheists that I can kind of sympathize with is that if it's indeed real and there is some supreme being, then why does he allow so many atrocities to happen? I know that people say that it's because it's all for the best, but sometimes it doesn't feel like the things that go wrong are for the best.
yeah, I know, and you often see with I looked up a lot of atheist and believer debates on YouTube over the years, and you do get to that question, and a lot of people say we're in a fallen world, since the temptation, in the garden where Eve supposedly ate the apple, and it's the world itself, with free will, and we they say that there was no what they're saying to now is that before the industrial revolution, the industrial age, there was no
Mhm.
cases of cancer. Say, they couldn't find that, and they're trying to exhume bodies and try and testing for everything they can on it. And they're kind of saying, well, like, have we created these, global, you know, pandemics, and from different things we've done, how we treated the environment. I it's the biggest question going, isn't it? How do you answer? Why is there pain? And maybe it's so that we can all voluntarily help each other to reduce the pain and help each
Yeah.
other, bear the same cross or bear each other's struggles. And that's maybe the big test of life. Who knows? But that's the best I can do on it so far.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point on how like maybe we all can affect each other's lives and develop ourselves as people because of the things that happen and how we need to support each other. But
Yeah,
what's your opinion on the idea of destiny or that things are set in place beforehand?
yeah. So what? It's funny. I was only thinking about this. Was it today or yesterday? Again, thinking about it again because it's a complex one, isn't it? What I think on it is, just there's certain. I do believe that there's certain things that happen for a reason and happen in certain
Mhm.
times for a reason. Like I nearly can't deny over the last few years the things that have happened and the meetings I've had with people just by chance, and the the route my life has taken. It seems that things, when you look back at it, it really worked out. You say, geez, that actually couldn't work out in a better way in some sense, and
Mhm.
I do think that we're called to a higher purpose, and like say, I think your Soar initiative, like that,
Mhm.
that could all of a sudden get in at a certain perfect time, like now, like you started it, and then COVID-19 happened, and
True.
it could be coincidence, or it could be the perfect launching point. It just so happened you didn't start it because of the lockdowns and because of
Yeah.
the pandemic, but I think maybe it came together. Your mind sparked at the same time, and now it'll reach more people straight away. Now, I do believe in that kind of thing. And I do believe that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's one of your callings. Maybe it's not the only one you have, but I do believe that maybe you were destined to do that, and maybe I was destined to do this, because before I did this a year ago, I was driving back and forth to work, and I kept saying to myself, I know there's a calling there. There's something right now, and it was like a week or two that I kept getting this feeling, and this is what I would perceive as the spirit. And it was kind of like, I know you're asking me to do something, but I don't know what it is at all. And it took me to sit down at my back garden one day with a pen and pad and just start writing. And then I came up with this, I think it was called Food, Fitness and Faith instead of Train, Thought and Truth. And then I think someone else had that or had half of it, had food and fitness, and it just would have been too but I do think that came at a certain time, and I met certain people over the last year, people have spoken to, the things that have happened, and just chance meetings, and I had to end up like having an accident on my bike. I don't know if that's meant to be, but from the time I spent at home was the perfect timing when I got certain people came across it, and I got to launch it globally. And I do think there is destiny and a calling, but I do think that people sometimes don't rise to the occasion. Really, that's what I think. And that's what do you think?
I mean, I believe that your choices do affect what can happen. Like, for example, that the idea that perhaps there are all these millions and millions of alternatives, but these planned out destinies for how your life is going to go. Yeah. And then every choice that you make sets you on a different path. So there could have been billions and billions and billions of paths for you to be able to go on. And then every little choice, from picking up something, walking someplace, everything sets you on a new path. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that like similar to that, I think maybe you have a destiny, but you can choose the path to get there, or you can choose your decisions to make it harder or make it easier for yourself, maybe,
Yeah.
Like I do believe in free will. I think that we're all given free will. And that's, and some people said to me, if there was a God, why wouldn't it appear in the sky and show us all? And like that would get rid of free will. That would get rid of the idea of faith, because everyone would have to believe then. Regardless if they wanted to or not, and have to be good or act good, regardless if they were good. I think that's what free will is.
So then do you think that if someone doesn't have faith, then they'll suffer because of it? Like, for example, those people that decide to have faith, that those will be the ones who get to go into afterlife, but the people who don't have faith, they will be the ones who actually end up, having that thing happen to them where it's just organ failure, not having senses, no afterlife. Or
I don't know, because I do think that we need to get right the things, are why. I think we're responsible for our bodies, and I think research and sports science and all these things are making us live a little bit longer. Like our mortality rates are going higher.
Yeah.
And I think that we can correct that, but I do think that. So what was the question? It was.
Yes, I was saying that. Do you think that just because you don't have faith in some sort of...
I do. I don't know. Like I have family members who have asked me, who are atheists, who have asked me, and where do you think I go? It's a very hard question. First of all, to answer one with, but my answer is that I don't know, and that's why I think there's a judge, because I think that I'm not a judge. I'm not the judge. And all I can do is read what the script says. And I think that if people are generally good people, that hopefully, they will get in. And I say prayers for my family who don't believe that is the case. But like, if I was to read Jesus' words, he says, if you condemn me in life, I will condemn you to my Father, and he stands as a judge between God and you. And that scares me, when I read that line.
Yeah, I myself am quite scared with the idea, because I'm not sure, because I feel that as though if I have faith, then I'm scared that I'll be disappointed when maybe perhaps it isn't true, but I'm scared that if I don't have faith, then I'll miss out on the opportunity as if it was true. So I don't really know what I should do, what I should think.
Yeah. Well, I guess it comes like, yeah, it's hard to see. I went the path, but I went the path through Christ and Christianity, so it's hard to know what way you would do it. But I guess it's one thing that I greatly benefited from was going to Israel, and I know it's a bit of a turbulent country, but when I went there, I really was able to bring the book and say, okay, so this is where they said they stood, and this is where they said this, and this is where this happened, and mapping it out in my mind while I stood there, and trying to be analytical about it. And maybe like you said, your next trip to India, it could be, part of that research culture. It's like you said, Hinduism is so old. Without founders, it's hard to know where you start. And
Yeah.
you obviously you'd have a better idea than me. There's obviously certain landmarks and things like that. But maybe it is the universal side of things where, I really from looking into. I was looking at this neurological study where they had people from praying to God, and they had the monitors on their head. I think it was called the nickname was the God helmet. They nicknamed it afterwards, but it was something other helmet, and they put it on the head, and it had all the electrodes, magnetic readings from your brain. And it's the people who were praying to God, part of their front cortex lit up. And it's a part of the brain that atheists don't use. And they said that was very interesting because they're using an extra part of their brain that atheists aren't using. They said that was very interesting. They're using, that's significant that they're using. So really, when I started reading all these things, my faith started to build a lot more. And I guess at the end of the day, if you believe in faith and it's right, it's great. If you don't believe in it, you've nothing to lose really by believing in it's wrong.
True.
Anyway, I guess in a way. But that's my take on it. But like that, I think that what you're doing with the Soar Initiative though, is a great thing. It's a great cause. You love reading. Reading benefits everybody. There's no one can ever deny that. And I think that for someone who loves reading and coming from such a fresh approach to it, where you have trailers especially for people for the blind, it's a great thing. A lot of us can be very selfish and not think about them things, because we have sight. We don't worry about that, or we don't think about it too much. But it's very considerate, and it's a great idea. And I have to say, I've been liking the bit of piano music and going through.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's very well produced, and I really wish you the best with it.
Yeah, thanks. I actually I wrote that piece of piano music with my friends last year, so I decided that it sounded good, and I thought that it'd be a good addition to include with the podcast.
Oh, it definitely is, and that's you playing, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Jeez. And I know you said you played violin, piano, clarinet. That's you just picked them all up yourself, or your musical family?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, he's really good at singing. He was to the point where he had to decide whether he wanted to take a career in singing, or whether he wanted to take a career in more educational related things. So yeah, my dad is really, really, really musical. He knows how to play 7 or 8 instruments, I think, including the drum, 2 or 3 different types of drums, the flute, guitar, and lots of other things.
Oh, very good. Jeez, that's great. I've a musical family myself, but we're all, well, I'm going to say most of us play acoustic guitar, but my grandfather was a pianist, and he also played button accordion, and so my father also plays the piano now. He's taking lessons as well at the moment. So it's just the 2 instruments. My brother can play a little bit of piano, but we're all we used to travel around Ireland playing guitar together and just singing in different pubs and stuff like that. Actually, you know what? I have a cultural question for you. It might sound like a funny one off topic, but we particularly love Indian food, right?
I mean, yeah, I like Indian food.
And would you know better, right? I'm always looking for a new dish or an authentic dish. Would you be a skilled person to ask on that?
Yeah, if you're looking for something to have that's closest to the cuisine that you would be already familiar with, Then have you ever heard of samosas?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like fried, and then it has potatoes and peas in it. And I think that that's a good place to start because I feel as though it's a food that isn't unique to one's own taste, and a lot of people can like it. Like, for example, at nearby movie theaters, they even offer it to be eaten with movies. So I think it's a good place to start if you want to get introduced to the cuisine.
Very good. And my family have always been big. Like we now, I know it's probably different. We get like Indian takeout, but
Yeah.
like if we are getting any kind of takeout, we always go for Indian here between me and my partner, and she loves a chicken chat it's called, and
Oh,
sometimes
nice. Yeah.
sometimes I get the what do they call the spicy one, the vindaloo, or the chicken bali, or but I'm looking for one that's really like the most close to an authentic
Yeah.
traditional
If
one.
you like spicy chicken, then one that's really good is chicken 65. It's
Mm.
called that because there's 65 different spices mixed into it, and it's really really good. But it's really spicy.
Oh, that's great. I'll try that next time.
Yeah.
Listen, Yajat, I really appreciate you coming on, and I think it's great what you're
Yeah.
doing. And I'm going to
Thank you.
share the link on this, and everyone can look it up. Your Soar Initiative Facebook group and
Mhm.
your podcast links, and I hope you stay going with it because I think it's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No, thanks very much for taking the time, and I'll chat to you again.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the best. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. You too.
Bye.